Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
All right, everyone calm down. Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It's Monday, July 15th. This is episode 116. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on both YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. I'm Matt Roy, Don Harris alongside. Don, you got the Iceman sweater on?
You know when you're boomer when it takes you 116 episodes to remember to bring a jacket into the freezer that we call a studio here.
Well, it's fitting because Iceman icebox that we sit
in
right now.
True.
So.
Every week I think about it, and I've never done it until today. So it's 1 year and 1 month. You know, just like my kids are telling me, you need this app, you need this thing. You know, oh yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get there.
I've seen you bring a pillow.
He's sitting on a pillow currently.
One. Yeah.
These chairs
because
are a little
these
uncomfortable.
Metal chairs. They're like folding metal chairs from the 70s.
Yeah, that's the next thing we need to buy, Luis, is some new chairs. that's an August budget.
You see the big budget podcast, and you see like Steven Jackson and all these guys sitting in like
comfy chairs,
really comfortable, like lounge.
You might fall asleep on us,
like something you might have at your house.
I might fall asleep on us if we do something like that. Also wearing the ASU shirt because today's a big day for all of us who like college sports. Except for NCAA 25.
Oh, yeah, that video game's
coming out. The video game coming out today, 3 o'clock Eastern. So if you need something to listen to while you're playing NCAA today, Sneakers Cleats podcast, remember to play with the Sun Devils. They're the best team in the game. So just saying. I'm going to download that this weekend. I feel like if I download it and buy it before the week is over, I just won't get anything done the rest of the week. So
I just really am worried about people your age, right? You're married to a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Take her out.
She works on Saturday.
Go to the Pearl. Walk around. Don't sit in your basement, play video games. You're going to lose her.
I'm going to sit in my living room so I can see her glare at me for hours on end.
Right, Bob?
Okay.
All these guys that sit in their basements and play video games.
I think that you guys are just jealous. You guys had Pong when you were kids. Okay, we have actually fun games.
I had to give up video games.
Yeah,
I could not stop playing them. Like I would start like on a Friday after work and like emerge Monday morning and like just in time to take a shower and go back to work.
Yeah, there's that element. You're right. I grew up in the 70s where the video games were bad. My kids had Mario. My kids had good video games, right? But I never was a video game guy because I had kids and I love my wife. And we want to go out and do things, right?
Yeah,
but when my kids got Guitar Hero and Leonard Skinner's Freebird was on that game, I came home from work at 11 p.m. in the game room. My kids were asleep. My wife was asleep. I got specially made headphones, wireless headphones, so that I could master. It took months, and I did it just about every night. I was so addicted, but it didn't affect anybody else in my family.
See? But it was fun, though, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a blast.
See? That's what I'm saying. Everyone has their little niche.
I couldn't do it when my wife was awake.
I'm sure Landry really liked to play 2K when he was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
See?
It wasn't classy at all for me. I was just playing Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I strictly played Madden and sports video games when I was a kid. But
yeah.
NCAA hasn't been out for 11 years now, I think. I think all people like me who played the former version of NCAA, which didn't have any names, didn't have any like affiliation with the schools, essentially. You couldn't have name, image, and likeness. Now you're coming out and you have the actual players, not just a player named number 2.
And they get paid for it.
And they're getting a little bit of money for it. So it's nice. It's going to be awesome this week. So looking forward to playing that this week. But we don't have a number game anymore because we ran out of numbers. Yeah. So I'm switching it up. We're gonna go with trivia.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give everyone the trivia question now. I'm gonna give you all out there a little time to think about it, and I'm gonna give Don a little time to think about it. I'll go through our segments, and then we'll go through the first segment. After the first segment, we'll answer the question. So about 10 minutes from now, we'll answer the question.
They'll look it up.
No Googling. Be true. Be true to the question. So the question is: who is the first Spur to record a quadruple-double? Which implies that there are 2 people in Spurs history that have tallied a quadruple-double. If you have any other questions or suggestions for segments, let me know, because I'm open to suggestions if trivia doesn't work. But I love trivia, so we're going to go with that. Do you have somebody in mind right away?
Yes. Mine all hinges on whether or not Wemby has one.
Okay.
If Wemby has one, then I know the answer. If he doesn't, then I'm torn.
I will give one hint. There have only been 4 in NBA history. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are by Spurs. And the last one...
I know the other one is by Akeem Olajuwon. One of them is...
That is one of them, correct. The first one was in 1974 by Nate Thurman. The other one's by Olajuwon, and then the other 2 are by Spurs.
Okay.
It's already like 5
That's 4.
tips.
That's all I'm saying. Everyone, submit your answers. We'll go through our rundown here, and then we'll come right back to it. So today we got a lot going on. So we're going to talk. Coach Pop, interestingly enough, spoke out for the first time on Saturday on the NBA broadcast of the Spurs and Trailblazers game. He talked about Stephon Castle, Sidy Cissoko, the additions of Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes. So we'll hear all of that, kind of break it down subject by subject. We're going to talk a lot about the the NBA Summer League, which we haven't really talked about yet because we've had a lot of other stuff going on. And also, I thought it was interesting, Jalen Brunson's contract and the precedent that kind of sets. He took $113 million less than he could have gotten from the Knicks. Idiot! to help build the team around him. So we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll see other superstars, maybe a Victor Wembanyama do that later on in their lives. So do that. We'll get back to trivia. But first, let's talk about Pop speaking on Barnes and CP3. So NBA Summer League obviously going on right now. You had Stephon Castle versus Donovan Clingan, Portland Trailblazers versus the Spurs on Saturday. CP3, Harrison Barnes, Coach Pop all there in the stands, or not in the stands, really on courtside. Taking it all in, he joined Doris Burke and the broadcast team to answer a couple of questions. This is what Coach Pop had to say about the additions of CP3 and Harrison Barnes.
Been an interesting summer, and I can remember last year doing one of your games, you were talking and a little bit lamenting the fact that you didn't have a lot of guys able to throw lob passes to Victor. Right. With CP3 there, that might be solved now, right?
I think he's gonna teach everybody a whole lot better than I do how to get the ball, not just how to do it, but when and where, that kind of thing. So having he and Harrison come into the fold at this stage in their careers is really wonderful for the youth that we have. Because, I can say things 54 times over and over again, over and over. When a player that you respect says the same stuff that we're saying, to a player, sometimes that's a lot more valuable. Yeah. And so having them around is going to be super.
So I find that interesting because CP3 said he doesn't want to be a coach. He wants to play. And so you hear Pop say, when you hear a player say something the same thing I'm saying, then maybe they'll listen a little bit better. But CP3 says he wants to learn, he wants to play, he wants to do all those things. So maybe, do you think that that might cause that there's a little bit of a disruption in message there, or am I just looking too far into it?
No, I think it's one and the same, right? I mean, I think CP3 is a coach, whether he wants to be one or not. When he plays, he's a coach. He's a floor general, and maybe the best there's ever been from an intellectual standpoint. For everybody that I've ever talked to, Antonio Daniels was on the show last night, and he said he's the smartest guy in the league and maybe the smartest player that's ever played in the league. And I think there's Magic and there's Paul Westphal and there's been some others that were really, really smart. But my brother-in-law coached Chris and told me at the time, and this is more than a decade ago, he's the smartest player I've ever coached.
Alvin Gentry, his brother-in-law.
Yeah, and so he's... there's a lot of things that have been a little that you could criticize Chris Paul for. He's been at times difficult to deal with as an individual personality. He didn't get along with Harden, but that has proven to be maybe Harden and not him. Westbrook, he had his issues with Blake Griffin. He's headstrong. He's a very strong personality, but he's very, very smart. I think at this point in his career, you can do both. He can be a player, and he's going to teach on the court because he doesn't put up for guys not being in the right position. If Devin Vassell refuses to throw Wemby a lob when he's wide open, Chris is going to let him hear it on the next on the way down to play defense. Not these guys that there was so much of that last year where I think Pop was even a little bit afraid to get these guys to go in the hole. They got such thin skin now that some of these players that when you criticize them, they'll go into a pouting fit. And so I think Chris, being a player, can scream at a guy or chew a guy, and it's different than the coach doing it, but the message gets across.
Did you see that as well when Tim, Tony, Manu came into the league, that they needed the veterans? Because I feel like that's one of the things that the Spurs were missing last year. There was no adult in the room. Doug McDermott was the only one that was older and maybe considered a veteran. Like, you can consider Devin Vassell a veteran now, but he's never had that, you know?
100%.
So that's what was missing. Did Tony, Manu, Tim,
Yeah.
Kawhi all have those guys? I mean, obviously Kawhi had the other three, but
So Tim comes
Tim
in.
had David.
Tim comes into a team that had won 60 games the year earlier, 2 years earlier. He's got David Robinson, who was the MVP in 95. Tim's coming in 97. And Dave was at the top of his game. So, yeah, they had Avery Johnson, was a really strong personality. Avery had everybody in line. And then when Manu and Tony come in, they're contending for championships as rookies with Tim now having already won one and an MVP, a finals MVP, with David. And so, yeah, everybody came into the situation where they had grown-ups there, but Wemby did not.
And how important is that to have somebody like that in the room? You see that a lot with the Heat. Like, they always have like a Udonis Haslem or a Juwan Howard on their championship teams in 12 and 13. It seems like that's one of those pieces that you just need the adult.
And I said it at the time last year. Wemby is the adult. Wemby is 10 years older than the rest of the roster, even though he's 20. But as a rookie, you can't scream at a guy, give me the dang ball, right? Because you're the rookie and you're the guy getting all the attention, and you don't want to alienate your teammates, and you want to get along. But I'm sure, and you could see it in his body language last year, there were many times when Wemby was PO'd that somebody had missed a wide open look. And late in the season, they figured it out, and they kind of figured you could just throw it in the ocean and he'll go up and get it. And they got a lot better at it. But early on last year, when they were in that 18-game losing streak, there were times where Keldon Johnson had a 2-on-1 fast break with Wemby and could have just thrown it up, but instead would drive and get fouled or something. And Wemby's just like, why didn't you throw it up? So Chris Paul's not going to let that happen.
I just texted Luis the answer to the trivia question just in case he wanted to put up a super. That's the part that's interesting to me is like when we all saw this, the Chris Paul, the Harrison Barnes of it all, we were like, okay, there's going to be an adult in the room. There's going to be veterans now. And I think those two veterans are the most, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. They're the ones that can harmonize the best with this roster because of the skill set that CP3 still has. CP3 is and will always be one of the best passers in the history of the game. He might be slower now. He might not have the best shot. Sometimes it can be a little boisterous on the court and combative with his teammates. He is one of the best passers and floor generals that we've ever seen besides a John Stockton or a Jason Kidd. And he's in that era. He's in that breath. So,
Yeah.
and that, when you're looking for a Stephon Castle to take that leap or a Devin Vassell to take that leap or teach a Trey Jones to be a backup point guard, all of those things, that's the person you want them to learn from, whether he's on the court or he's on the bench as a coach.
I went and watched his tape from last year with the Warriors because I didn't know how much he had declined or not or whatever. And you know how when Michael got old, he went from the skying dunks to the fall-away jumper guy because that's what his body would allow him to do. Chris Paul doesn't need to be overly athletic. And you look at his tape last year, now he was hurt a lot, and that does play a factor. But when healthy, he plays at such a pace that he doesn't need to be sped up. It doesn't matter if he's the fastest guy out there. He gets what he wants because he's so smart. He says the screeners set guys up. he gets to a spot where he wants to either pass or shoot, and he can still make plays. And if you watch Castle, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about the Summer League, Castle has a similar motor in that you can't speed him up. He plays at his pace, which is a brilliant pace. He's physical. He can get in the lane. He looks for guys. That's going to be really needed. And he's going to learn a ton from Chris Paul. And I think Chris Paul is going to be better than people think because he doesn't need to be 100% the quicker, younger Chris Paul. He's adjusted his game, and he's fine playing at his pace.
And also, if a Harrison Barnes and CP3, who have both played with Draymond Green, can help Jeremy transition into a Draymond Green-like role where he's a great defender, he's a good passer, he can shoot on occasion, but he's more of like an emotional leader of that team. Because I'll say this to my dying day, the Warriors would never have won any of those championships without Draymond Green.
Right.
And if he didn't kick someone in the nuts in that 3-1 blown lead series against LeBron and the Cavs, they would have won that series too. He's that important to that team.
Should have won the Toronto series.
And I think if they can show him this is what you need to do to be Draymond Green, because I think that's a very clear and obvious comp for Jeremy, because he does see the floor well. He just kind of makes boneheaded plays every so often, more often than we'd like. I think that can really help him as well. So let's get to the answer to the trivia question before we get to Stephon Castle. So do you have a guess? Again, the question is, who is the first Spur to record a quadruple-double? That is the question. The first Spur to record a quadruple-double. Who is it?
Can I tell you that we have some people in the chat room, or do you want to?
Let's get Don first, and then we'll go to the chat.
Okay.
I'm going to say that Wemby does not have one.
Okay.
And because Wemby does not have one, then that means David Robinson has one. And that's the last one, which means the first one, I would guess, would be Alvin Robertson.
Okay.
Alvin Robertson is the answer for 3 of our 4 guessers. The other one thinks David Robinson.
The answer, drum roll please, is Alvin Robertson. Do you remember when?
85.
February 18th, 1986. 20 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, 10 steals in a 120-114 win against the Phoenix Suns. Ironically enough, David Robinson's, 8 years later,
I was there,
was February 17th, one day earlier in a calendar than Robertson's. His was 34 points,
1994 or 5?
1994.
Yeah.
10 rebounds, 10 assists, 10 blocks in a win against the Pistons. I would be willing. I thought that a lot of people would say Robinson, which is why I like the trivia question. I would be willing to bet that the Spurs will have the 5th player to have a quadruple-double as well.
Sure.
Wemby will be the next player to get a quadruple-double.
And Larry Keenan, whose jersey should be hanging at the Frost Bank Center, is the only guy other than David, not even Tim, to average 20 and 10 for his career. Also had an 11 steals game, which is the NBA all-time record. So, but I guess that in that game where he had 11 steals, he didn't have the 4th category.
It's kind of amazing to me that it hasn't happened since 1994. You had it happen 4 times in a 20-year period, essentially from Nate Thurmond to David Robinson, and then it hasn't happened since. Wemby came real close this year. I think he was 8. I think he had 8 blocks.
I think he did.
He had 8 blocks in his game, but he was really close. He had a triple-double with 8 blocks, and we were all just like, what the hell?
It's another reminder of how great David Robinson and Hakeem Olajuwon were. Both of them so underrated.
David Robinson's such a forgotten great big man.
So underrated. David Robinson's the only player in NBA history who has this. Rookie of the Year, MVP, block shots title, scoring title, rebound title. All of those 5 things. No other player in NBA history has
Shaq
those.
doesn't have that?
No.
He didn't get a scoring or...
I don't think... Shaq has...
He was a Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, but he may have a scoring title, but he didn't have a block shots title. Or he doesn't have a rebound
Wemby
title.
can get all those. So
Easy.
All right. That was
Has
fun.
anyone ever had a quintuple?
No, I don't think so.
5 times 5, there's been that. but not a 5 times 10.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there's been 5-5-5-5 with steals, rebounds, assists, blocks.
Wemby had one of the few.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see when he gets it. He might get it next year. Who knows? But yeah, we're going to do trivia from now on. I like trivia, so I'll start to get the questions to Bob a little bit ahead of time, so we can post those before we get on, and we can get some answers going. But when Chuck's here, I'll try and go more football trivia for Cowboys and whatnot. When you're here, I'll go Spurs trivia.
I know you're a defensive player of the year.
You're the Spurs guy. So anyway, let's get to Spurs Summer League. So how have the Spurs rookies looked so far? I've actually been really impressed with Stephon Castle. I think Stephon Castle has shown great maturity. What?
You and everybody else.
I know. I love Stephon Castle. It sucks that he hurt his wrist and he couldn't play last night.
They were going to shut him down anyway. They've seen enough. Remember Wemby last year?
Yeah, he played the first 2 games.
You've seen enough.
So Stephon Castle, his shot is not broken very clearly. His shot looks fine. He takes some ill-advised shots sometimes, but he's also in summer league and he's the best player on the team right now. So, and they've told him to be aggressive. So he's going to go out and take some ill-advised shots sometimes, which is fine. He scored 22 in his second time. I think it was 11 in his first game. He's seeing the floor really well. You can see that the kind of reckless abandon that he plays with, which is also very encouraging to see someone put out that kind of effort at all times, which we knew was going to happen when he came out of UConn. I've been really impressed with what we've seen from Stephon Castle so far.
So has Pop. So has everybody in the league that's sitting there. If you've ever been to Summer League, it's every single person in the league, be it assistant coaches, GMs, agents, head coaches, players, all-star players, and to a man, it's not the jaw-dropping that we had last year with Wemby, but there's a lot of people talking already about Castle as Pop is going to have an impossible job keeping him off the court.
Speaking of, let's hear from Pop at Summer League. This is on the same interview talking to Doris Burke and their broadcast team.
Stephon Castle comes with a championship ring from UConn and knocked down a couple threes in that first half. Your thoughts on what you've seen from him so far?
I love his seriousness for such a young kid. I love his pace. You see his expression never changes. And he doesn't go too fast. He doesn't go too slow. He reads the situations. And the more minutes he gets, the better he's going to be. He seeks contact. He's an excellent defender, and he makes wonderful decisions. So he's going to be a quick study, I think, and get to play on the court pretty quickly.
We got to get
Directly to your point, he's going to play really quickly.
Let me tell you. Let me see something that I read this morning about Stephon Castle. So let's be the first. This is from The Ringer.
Okay.
And I'm trying to see who. This is from Rob Mahoney at the Ringer, who's there, and he says, "So let me be the first to report that Stephon Castle is pretty awesome. There was simply no way to know this about one of the best players on the best team in college basketball last year because the only true crucible is Summer League, the purest version of the game. We can see the truth of Castle's game in this glorified AAU tournament, and better yet, a single game of his tournament before he withdrew with a wrist injury. But what a game it was, even in the Summer League slop. Castle is an engine for intuitive winning plays, connecting dots that lesser prospects won't see, and manifesting plays that lesser athletes couldn't create. The questions about Castle's shot and position are inevitable, but those are almost beside the point. What's most striking about watching him play against quasi-pros is realizing how difficult it's going to be to take him off the floor in the earliest days of his career. Why would the Spurs deprive themselves of a guard who comes by impact plays so naturally? Throw Castle into the mix and see what he can turn up, whether by jamming opponents up at the point of attack or by slicing his way through the defense. Toolsy theoretical players are fun and all, but so are the dudes who make blank happen, almost incidentally, as if it were an entire way of life."
How do you do that though when you now have Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul? Like, what does that look like as a roster construction? Is it
I'm glad you asked.
As a sixth man?
I stared at the ceiling last night thinking about this in my bed, and you start.
I've been hanging out with you too much.
I think you start the season with Castle, backing up Chris Paul and getting some point guard minutes. And then as he progresses, I think you finish games with a small lineup of Paul, Castle, Vassell, Barnes, Wemby,
No Sohan.
and Sohan on the side. Or Sohan starts to come off the bench much like Keldon does. Because I think Paul and I think Vassell can play the 3 in a small lineup. And I think that maybe Castle plays the 3. They're interchangeable wings is what they are. And you're going to put your best players on the court. And he can create when Paul needs a rest, but he can also create with Paul. He's so good. I was so impressed, even in the California games, when he didn't shoot the ball well, his pace, and if he develops an 8-foot Tony Parker floater, forget it.
Well, I mean, CP3 is the right one to learn that from.
Forget it. Because he gets anywhere he wants to get. He's that strong, and he looks for the oop. He looks for guys to throw to.
What I love about him, and I'm trying not to wax rhapsodic about a guy that we've seen 2 games from in an NBA uniform.
Yeah, he hasn't played against
He hasn't
anybody.
played against elite competition yet, so I'm trying not to get too ahead of ourselves.
you can see it.
But what I love about him is he has a Ja Morant-like intensity. The thing that everyone loves about Ja is that he throws his body everywhere. It gets him into trouble sometimes because he gets hurt a little bit. But I love that the Stephon Castle has that sort of intensity when it comes to his defense, when it comes to his hustle, when it comes to his effort. And that's something that I think we all questioned last year about the Spurs was the effort on the court because it just wasn't going very well, and you could see them taking plays off. And he'll never do that.
And I think those guys played hard, but they played a lot of out of control. And he's never not in control. He reminds me of SGA, that, SGA is so smooth of being out, on the perimeter and then making a couple of moves and getting below the free throw line and then finding the Holmgren or whoever or shooting the mid-range jumper. He just kind of has a geometry mastery of the court innately where he can get where he wants to go. And it's, again, this is a guy who's never played. So imagine how good he's going to be in a couple years.
Yeah, I mean, him coming off the bench at the beginning, I won't. Spurs fans need to calm down because he's probably not going to start. I wouldn't say he's going to start unless they start with that small lineup, which I don't think they will.
Tony Parker started on the bench for 5 games. When Pop realizes you can play and you're going to play, he's going to play you. And you heard him just say that.
He's going to be hard to keep on the bench. That's what he said.
He said that.
Yeah.
And he said the more minutes he gets, the Spurs really believe that experience through minutes played is the most valuable thing. So I could see him not starting, but again, I hate to say how old I am, but it was Shriner University, Kerrville, Texas, day 2 of Tim Duncan's rookie year training camp. Vinny Del Negro and Avery Johnson came out of practice and were like, their eyes were just bugging out of their heads, and they were like, OMG. Like, this guy is schooling David Robinson. Like, he's so good right away,
Yeah.
And so if he has that kind of training camp, then maybe he does start.
Do you think? Okay. We're not going to get to the Jalen Brunson stuff. We've already gone. We're going to go too long because I have another Sidy Cissoko thing I want to get to too. So just FYI. Do you think that causes problems
No.
between him and CP3? Because CP3 came here because he wants to play, obviously.
No, I think he starts with CP3.
So who gets benched then, Jeremy?
Yeah.
So they start in that small lineup.
Yeah.
Because Devin's not going to come off the bench.
Probably not.
I don't think so. I would say that's probably unlikely. CP3 is
They
going to
talked Manu into doing it.
Yeah, but he talked Keldon into doing it last year, and that was Keldon's role.
Keldon may not be here.
You got a lot of things going on in your head right now about this lineup.
It's fluid. Everything's fluid.
Speaking of,
Because guess what? CP3, Vassell, Sohan, they'll know.
fair.
If he's the best.
See it in practice.
They'll know if he's better. Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to get to, he being Pop waxed rhapsodic about Sidy Cissoko on that broadcast as well with Mark Jones and Doris Burke. So let's hear that because I think it's very telling what he thinks of Sidy.
What about that young man intrigues you? Because I love how hard he plays Pop.
You know, he's the the dream in the back of my head. When I look at his body, I look at his strength, his length, his quickness, his explosiveness. He has a natural inclination to be a great passer, things that we can't really teach.
Yeah.
He is really a great passer. He's got to work on his shot, obviously. But the explosiveness, the foot speed he has to play D with that body at the 3 position, I think he's going to be a special player.
Those are really, really high marks from somebody who is as storied and as good of a talent evaluator as Pop is. Like, I see CD, and last year I think he'll admit that he was a little overweight. He's lost 20, 25 pounds now. He looks a little bit thinner. He's not the offensive player that I think like catches your eye all the time. But just based on what Pop said right there, that's makes me change my perspective on CD a little bit.
He's been a project from the start. You know, he came 19 from France too, but he pops off the screen with athleticism, and what Pop used the word explosiveness. Same thing. He's a terrific athlete, and he's got the size and strength to grow up. You know, he's only 20 years old, so it's kind of like when we saw Kawhi Leonard as a rookie. Kawhi could not shoot a lick. He was awful. But you saw his shoulders, you saw his hands, you saw his arm length, and you said, oh my God, if this kid learns how to play, he's going to be an all-star just based on his God-given physicality. And this kid's like that too. He's different.
He's raw
from an athletic standpoint.
I mean, he's just raw. He has raw talent, but it's
potential.
not refined yet.
Right.
But do you see him?
Sometimes they turn into players and sometimes they don't.
Do you see that as contributing this year?
Yeah.
As someone off the bench who can come in 3-and-D kind of guy or D and effort kind of guy, almost like a makeshift Josh Hart kind of player or a Gary Payton II kind of player coming off the bench in Golden State. Someone like that who can come in, give you energy, give you defense, and give you some hustle plays.
Yeah, he'll play minutes. I don't think he'll play much in Austin, if at all.
I can see him making a difference on this roster. But to me, you hear there his defense is what Pop likes. Stephon Castle's defense is what they like. Wemby's all-around game, but his defense is what they like. If you're picking up and reading in between the lines, this team was bottom 3rd in defense last year, one of the worst defenses in the league by far. It sounds like they're going to be a top 10 defense this year out of all of the emphasis and players that they're getting to try and make a difference on that side. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see. You know, they've lost Chetty Osman played no D. He's gone. Minutes for Malachi Blake, this is what intrigues me, is that will these guys be moved? Will they they're playing for their contract lives this year, and I don't know that there's going to be minutes for them.
Yeah, and you look at Jeremy, you look at Keldon as well, and they play decent defense. Jeremy plays pretty good defense.
Yeah, Jeremy's a good defender.
Keldon plays okay defense, but he has a lot of mental lapses where he gives up on a play or something and then scores and the back door cuts behind him and there's an easy layup. There's a lot of those kinds of things that need to be shored up, but I think when you see the effort from other guys like Harrison Barnes or Stephon Castle or Sidy Cissoko or a Wemby, it picks up everybody else to also kind of put in that effort and stay awake and alive for 24 seconds on the shot clock.
CD's fun to watch.
CD is fun to watch.
He's a knucklehead offensively. But
we need less knuckleheads offensively, okay? We have a lot of those.
Yeah, so he needs to grow. But athletically, he's got all the potential in the world.
You know, Velo in the comments has a whole lot to say about CD, agreeing with you about the weight loss and how he looks a little quicker. But he also says that when CD's knee heals, he'll be better defensively. I didn't realize he had a knee injury.
Yeah, scope.
Yeah, he has scope after the season. He's fine now. I think they're still working him back. He said he's like 90, 95%, something like that. But he's still working back into shape and all that.
Crazy athlete. Dominique Wilkins type athlete.
Wow.
Just can jump out of the gym.
And
like dunk contest kind of guy.
And you don't see that from him, though. You don't see those flashy plays from him, mainly because he played in Austin last year, so we really never saw him. And then
look at some of his Austin tape, boy.
Yeah, his brief cameo in the NBA at the end of last season was it was good.
He's powerful.
He is powerful, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else, Bob?
That's all we got.
All right, we'll get to the Jalen Brunson stuff on
shout out Tom Guerrero
on Thursday. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll talk more Jalen Brunson stuff on Thursday. Chuck, I believe, will be back. He's over at the All-Star game right now, so a little jealous. He's getting getting to interview all the Texas Rangers.
Doing all his baseball geekery.
As he does. Biggest baseball fan I know is Chuck McIntyre.
Absolutely.
All right. If you don't find me for 3 days, I'll be in my living room playing NCAA. So, Jordan, sorry. Jordan actually volunteered to buy it for us. So I'm just saying.
If it's such a great game, why they
wife
not
of the
put it
century.
out for 10 years?
Because they didn't have the NIL stuff.
Because the lawsuit, the O'Bannon lawsuit.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
All right.
So now that NIL's here, they're able to have it. So
Can you imagine how much money Johnny Manziel could have made?
Oh, God. Did you see?
He would have drank it.
Brief side note. Did you see that Arch Manning for that EA Sports commercial that he did with Eli? He made 50 to 60 grand. Did you see the commercial?
Nothing. It's a drop in the bucket for him. He's making over $1 million at Texas.
Yeah, but did you see the commercial? He was playing the video game. Eli was giving him the play, and then he scores a touchdown, and then he goes, EA Sports, I'm in the game. And he goes with the Longhorns. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And he's getting, all the athletes are getting paid $600 plus a free copy of the game. So why not?
The guy who doesn't even suit up is getting mad money.
Because he's going to suit up eventually, and it's going to be
Eventually.
glorious. All right, anyway, that's all we got for you on today's episode of the Sneakers Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We will be back on Thursday with more than ever before. Until then, everyone have a good week.